Middle Church, it is so good to be here. I have to admit, this is my first Christmas not with my mom and dad and at home. And I'm 30, so it's been a good run. And I came last night, and I was a little disappointed, but the moment Tammy and the choir sang and we began and Jackie preached, I just felt at home. And I couldn't imagine a place I'd rather be. And I also got my brother Karsten here from North Carolina, so we're not alone. So I'm so happy to be here. And if there's anything about the Christmas story, it is that family is chosen. And some of you know after the past few days that it's not always easy to choose family. So we do appreciate you coming and choosing to be here with us this morning. Every year when I was a kid, we would pack up from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, around this time for Christmas and travel to Indianapolis, Indiana, where my mom's family's from. And we got to stay with Chancey, our great-grandmother. Each year we would all fight over who got to hug Chancey first. And you have to know that Chancey was was past 80 by this time, when I was about y'all's age, and a little frail, but she was always outside waiting for us in that driveway in Indianapolis. And some of y'all met my brother John last week when he visited, and if you knew John as a child, you knew that he put the H in ADHD. He, without fail, would burst out of the van and jump on Chancey with my parents, yelling behind, saying, "Don't hurt her." But she made it to 91. But you see, Chancey grew up here in Manhattan, actually. And by the age of 17, she was the only one left in her family, an orphan. Her father died when she was 5 years old. Her mother died when she was 16. Her only brother that we knew about died when she was 17. And by 19, she was in Indianapolis. She had married my great-grandfather, who I'm named for. They had 5 children. 19 grandchildren, one of which is my mom, and 56 great-grandchildren out of that. And so you can imagine that being one of 56, we had to do a lot of fighting over to get some personal time with Chancey. I was never much of an early riser except for Christmas time. But when I got to Chancey's house, it was a magical house, and there was just all sorts of rooms and little places where there was sugar cubes that she would give us, and I would climb up when it was still dark. Now, don't wake up early. Jackie might know this now, too. Sorry. Christmas is about forgiveness, too. Thank you, Jesus. I would climb out of bed, and I would go find Chancey in the kitchen, making that amazing banana bread she made and blueberry muffins. And I can still remember sitting in her kitchen on the bar stool while she walked around and worked and talking with her. Chancey understood the importance of one child. She loved children. That's probably why she had so many. And last week, I got a personal day off and went with my brother John on a family scavenger hunt here in the city. That took us all the way up to Woodlawn Cemetery. And we actually were able to find, anyone been there, it's massive. We jumped in the car with security, they drove us around, and we finally, in the back of the Larch area, found an old mausoleum where my great-great-grandparents, where her parents were buried. And we found them, and we peeked inside. They didn't believe us yet, so we didn't get a key. And there were 6 catacombs, so they're stacked up, and 2 of them were empty, so me and my brother called dibs of the 56. But there was a 4th one. We knew that her dad, Isaac Sachs-Kalisz, was a Jewish immigrant from Poland. We knew her great-grandmother was a successful businesswoman who had a store we went by on 14th and 5th Street. They had a big fur store, and they lived just a few blocks down from here. We didn't know much, but we knew a few little stories. We knew that when my mom was flying with her as a child, or no, as a young person, and asked Chancey, "Is this the first time you've ever flown?" And she said, "No, the first time I flew was with those Wright boys." Apparently they would do flights here for fundraisers, I knew that I didn't have to buy diamonds for my, at the time, fiance, because she had come from New York and had a huge thing of diamonds somehow out of this, and she had inherited, and she broke and took all the diamonds out, and they'd gone down, so I think there was about 50 of them. I got 2 of them. First one of the family, first of the boys to get married, so they're out of luck, the rest. But that the diamond that I used to propose to Hershey about 10 blocks from where she lived came from right here as well. So we knew these stories, these little pieces of her life, but we didn't know the whole story. And we didn't even know about her other brother, Charles. But there was Charles when we got to the catacombs last week. It was a 4th block. And he died when he was a year and a half old, when Chancey was about 5. So I share these stories because I think we're in a time in the world and a time in our church and a time in history where stories are all we have. And if anything about the Christmas story tells us that that's nothing to sniff at. Stories. It's the same word that creates storehouses. It's the place where things are stored, where treasures are stored. And so that's what I think about when when the writer Luke pauses and says in verse 19, "But Mary treasured all these words and pondered them in her heart." All these words. What were these words? These were the words that the shepherds had brought. That the shepherds who were an outcast were on the outside of society, as Jackie illustrated very clearly last night and in detail about their smelliness and their hygiene. We're not the high society. They weren't what you see on the Hallmark cards with their nice clean robes and a staff. God chose to go to the margins to reveal this gift of Jesus. And so I think we'll have to return to our stories. Mary treasured these words in her heart because she knew this story is what would sustain her and sustain a people through tough times of occupation. My advisor in seminary told us every week, tell your own story. You've got to tell your own story, because if you don't, someone else will. And he also quoted Chinua Achebe, Nigerian author, who said, "If you don't like my story, then tell your own." So if you don't like this sermon, you can go tell someone else your own later on. But one amazing thing about this story this year is that we don't have to work so hard to imagine what the context of Jesus in first century Palestine was. An occupation where a registry is coming, where an empire is growing and growing fearful. And we know that empires and fear cause a lot of pain, cause a lot of harm. We don't have to think too hard about what they might be going through, because in the next 4 years, we are going to be seeing a lot of the similar activities. And actually, as we learned last night from Sister Aber at the beautiful mosaic from the American Association, we've had a registry in this nation. She told a story about her father being put in jail for 3 years because he thought he was doing the right thing by registering after 9/11, when they had the registry here, and he was sent to jail and deported. And she grew up having to pretend to be sick as she went to visit him in jail. So we don't have to imagine too much about this story. So what are these words that we can treasure? Well, one of them, this is a homily, so I'll be quick. One of them is, do not be afraid. Be not afraid. This is a phrase written hundreds of times in the Bible, and if it's written hundreds of times, you might want to pay attention to it. Maya Angelou says that of all the virtues, courage is the most important, because without courage, we cannot practice any of the others. So in this new year, we need to listen to and treasure and ponder in our hearts, do not be afraid. The second one that I want to highlight is good news for all the people. For all the people. The story of Jesus is amazing because it blows apart any of our contradictions about the particular and the universal. Some of you have been in some grad school classes, almost inevitably in a philosophy class that you devolve into some esoteric discussion about particular and universal. But what Jesus is it proves is that you can't get to any universal love without going through a particular human being and a particular person. It's most well illustrated in Matthew in the genealogy, which we skip, but it goes through all these generations like a funnel into one place that connects to all people. That in Jesus we can find all people, that Jesus is the symbol of dignity for the disinherited. The story of Jesus is one that busts up any false dichotomy we might have in internal struggles about charity versus justice work versus helping one person versus fighting a system. It's all connected. And we have to think about who the messengers are, finally. The messengers are people on the outside. In the year to come, we must be open to the margins middle. We have to be open to the creative resistances that are going to come up. There will be resistance that comes from places we don't expect. And if we're not ready and not open to new prophets and different types of prophecies, then we're going to be in bad shape. What Christmas reminds me of is also God's great love for us. And so I want to leave you with a great mystic woman, St. Teresa of Avila, who said, "He desired me, so I came close. No one can hear God unless he has prepared a bed for you. 1,000 souls hear his every second call. But most everyone then looks into their life's mirror and says, I am not worthy to leave this sadness. When I first heard his courting song, I too looked at all I had done in my life and said, how can I gaze into his omnipresent eyes? How many of you all have ever wondered, who am I to be loved by God? I spoke those words with all my heart, but then again he sang a song even sweeter. And when I tried to shame myself once more from his presence, God showed me his compassion and spoke a divine truth. I made you, dear, and all I make is perfect. Please come close, for I desire you. Middle, please come close, for God desires you, and so do we. Amen.